Hello everyone and welcome back to the 3T Path channel. Welcome back to our Uddhava-gita course. Now we're here in this important section of the Uddhava-gita where Krishna is explaining the Vedas. So it's this connection with the traditional Vedas, especially the Veda Samhitas, the Vedic religion of doing all the rituals, the yagyas, to be able to take birth in Swarga, to be able to join the demigods in a future life of great pleasure and opulence, as opposed to what we're teaching in the Puranas and Bhagavad-gita and the Upanishads, which is Vedanta, which is the spiritual path, the path of liberation beyond all reincarnation. Breaking free from the cycle of birth and death. So Krishna is making this comparison of the Vedas and Vedanta, the ultimate knowledge of approaching him. So the topic is, by all the Vedas, I am to be known. So let's start here with, we are in the 11th Canto, 21st chapter, verse 37. And if you want to watch all the previous classes, all you have to do is become a member of this channel. And the instructions are here in the description of the video. Once you become a member of this channel, you can access the entire course at Uddhava-gita.com. Okay, so here we go. Krishna says, as the unlimited, unchanging, and omnipotent personality of Godhead dwelling within all living beings, I personally establish the Vedic sound vibration in the form of Omkara within all living entities. It is thus perceived subtly, just like a single strand of fiber on a lotus stalk. So very nice imagery, right? A single strand of fiber in a lotus stalk. So Om, Krishna is there in the heart of everyone. This is a very important concept that's always explained over and over again. Krishna dedicates a whole chapter of it to it in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, where he explains that I am Paramatma. So there's Atma, we are Atma, I'm Atma, you're Atma. And then there's Paramatma, Para, supreme, beyond. Paramatma, super. So there's soul and super soul. So Krishna is super soul. I am here in this body, but I'm not in your body. So me, Atma, I'm just here. The plant Atma is just in this plant body. And you, Atma, you're just there in that body. But Paramatma, Krishna is in all bodies. So Krishna is in here, in the plant, in you, all bodies, everywhere. So Krishna is in everyone. So we say the heart of all living entities. People get confused. It's not heart in the sense of the, what a cardiologist studies. It's heart as in the center. Like we say the heart of the city, the heart of the matter. It's just the center. The principal center. So at the center of all living entities, there is God. So God is there, and then he says, this is the connection. He's explaining the Vedas, right? The Vedas sound, and it starts with Omkara. So the sound of Om. Om is the seed sound, the seed syllable for all the spiritual texts. So Om. So Krishna says, I establish the sound vibration of Om within all living entities. So the sound vibration is there. So that when you chant Om, when you take the effort of saying Om, then with that vibration you connect with the subtle vibration already present there. That's why Om is so trippy. It's very trippy. It's a very trippy syllable sound mantra because it's just there. It's just a syllable that you just chant and things just vibrate to it. It's hard to explain. If you've tried it, you know what I'm saying. Otherwise you think I am mad. But no, so just try, just vibrating Om. It's very wonderful. Also, I think I have a link. I'll leave a link to chanting of Om here for you in the description of the video. I have it in Portuguese, I'm not sure, but and I'll leave a link to it here. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead personally resides within the heart of every living entity. And from this verse, we can understand that the seed of all Vedic knowledge is also situated within all living beings. In this way, the process of awakening Vedic knowledge and thereby awakening one's eternal relationship with God is natural and necessary for everyone. All perfection is found within the heart of the living beings. As soon as the heart is purified by chanting the holy names of God, that perfection, Krishna consciousness, immediately awakens. Very nice. Verses 38, 39, and 40. So it's a big paragraph. Let's go through it slowly. Just as a spider, this is a common metaphor used about the spider. Just as a spider brings forth from its heart its web and emits it through its mouth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead manifests Himself as the reverberating primeval vital air prana, compromising all sacred Vedic meters and full of transcendental pleasure. Thus the Lord, from the ethereal sky of His heart, creates the great and limitless Vedic sound by the agency of His mind, which conceives of variegated sounds such as the sparshas. The Vedic sound branches out in thousands of directions, adorned with the different letters expanded from the syllable Om. The consonants, vowels, sibilants, and semivowels. The Veda is then elaborated by many verbal varieties, expressed in different meters, each having 4 more syllables than the previous one. Ultimately, the Lord again withdraws His manifestation of Vedic sound within Himself. It's very nice. So the idea, without getting too caught up in the details or the poetry, is that all the Vedic knowledge, all the Vedas, Veda means knowledge. And of course it's, crucial transcendental knowledge, not just knowledge of trivial matters, but the absolute knowledge, the most important philosophical knowledge. So this knowledge, it comes from God. It's basically what you have to understand. It comes from God, starting with Om, and it expands in all this variety of different meters and sounds and letters and syllables and sibilants, and it just expands, and it's like Vedas are so enormous. That's one of the things that it's hard for people who are coming, even people who are born in an Indian Hindu tradition, but the Vedas are so massive. How do you tackle it? It's so much stuff. I mean, here we are. We're studying the Bhagavad Purana, just one Purana. Of course, it is the Supreme Purana. It's not just one Purana. It stands above all Puranas with no comparison. It's like comparing Mount Everest with little hills or something. But anyway, so the Bhagavad Purana stands supreme, but still, it is one Purana. There are other nice Puranas, Vishnu Purana. There are other nice Puranas. But so one Purana out of 18 Puranas, and just this one Bhagavad Purana is humongous. Over 14,000 verses in the edition we have here before us. 14,000 verses, 20 times the size of the Bhagavad-gita, over 20 times the size of the Bhagavad-gita. So imagine that. And that's just one Purana. And then, of course, there's the Bhagavad-gita, there's the Mahabharata, and there's all these Upanishads. And what to speak of the Vedas and Gitas. So with all this, it's just expanding from Krishna. So Krishna is like this example of the spider. The spider just starts there with nothing and then starts creating that giant web. Intricate. You've seen some beautifully intricate webs. I used to live in Brazil and we used to have lots of spiders there. And you just have to, like every day I'd be seeing this amazing art because they would just do it overnight, and you're like, oh wow, look at this. In the morning the dew would catch on the web and you have this absolute work of art. So the Vedas are expanding this, so it can get confusing. It can get a bit confusing because there's so much of it. But you have to work your way through, and that's where the guru comes in. You have to have a good guru to help you, guide you, so you can see the essence. And here we're taking, instructions from the supreme guru of all gurus, Krishna himself, from whom all these Vedas are coming from. So, we have to listen to Krishna here. And then we can cancel out the noise and focus on the most important thing, the very root of everything, which is literally Krishna. So that's the idea, very important here. Srila Sridhar Swami has given an elaborate technical explanation of these three verses, the understanding of which requires extensive linguistic knowledge of the Sanskrit language, which is a very complicated and difficult language to learn. The essential point is that the transcendental knowledge is expressed through Vedic sound vibration, which is itself a manifestation of the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. The Vedic sound emanates from the Supreme Lord and is vibrated to glorify and understand Him. The conclusion of all Vedic sound vibration is found in the Bhagavad-gita, wherein the Lord states, Vedaistar sarveraham eva vedya. All Vedic knowledge is simply meant to teach us to know and love God. One who always thinks of Lord Krishna, who becomes the Lord's devotee, and who bows down to and worships the Lord with faith and devotion, chanting His holy name, has certainly achieved a perfect understanding of all that is indicated by the word Veda, knowledge. And that's the idea. The idea is go through all the noise and just focus on the very root of everything, which is God. That's the beautiful thing of self-realization. When you start seeking out your true self, self-realization, what you'll discover is that your true self, you're part and parcel. Krishna says, mame vamso, amsa, part. You're amsa of God, of Krishna. So you're an eternal soul, an eternal Atman, you have an eternal relationship. But so when you discover yourself, you discover then the root of yourself, which is God. So the root of yourself is God. So discovering self-realization, going to the root, going to the essence, you discover this you and God, and therefore a loving relationship between you and God, bhakti. And this is infinite love. Because there's no limit to love. There's no enough of love. Nobody ever said, okay, that's enough of love. I'm sick of it. Nobody ever said that. You can get sick of everything else, but nobody gets sick of loving. Nobody is like, oh, okay, I'm sick of loving. I won't love you anymore. No, you don't get sick of real love. You don't get, loving between perfect souls. You get tired of people not being loving. That's very easy. But the whole point of spirituality is that you get to love purely. Because as you progress spiritually, you're getting rid of all the baggage, of all the nonsense, of all the, they use the term contamination, all the pollution. They use these terms, the anarthas, to use a Sanskrit term. So you get rid of all the anarthas, all the things without value. Anartha literally means like, artha means value. So anartha without value. So you get rid of everything that doesn't have value. All the, which we call in common language something without value, garbage, right? It's just garbage. You throw it away. It's got no value. I don't want it. So we get rid of all this garbage. That's the process of living in sattva, progressing in the path of yoga, and in the 3T path. I teach all the different techniques, the things you have to do, the lifestyle choice. So this whole, and then the contemplation and the way you work your mind, and you have to work through these things. We've accumulated a lot of garbage, a lot of anarthas. So as we progress spiritually, we start getting rid of all this junk. And as we get rid of this junk, we become closer and closer to our true selves. And so this true self can love perfectly. This is the self that can truly love. When we love without this perfection, we love with, with contamination. We love with greed. We love with jealousy. We love with envy. We love with lust. So it's like, it's not pure love. That's why, it's not pure love. Because it's all this other stuff that's stuck, covering you. They're called coverings. There's all these coverings, so you can't be a pure loving person because you're not pure. You have to purify yourself through tapas, through the process of purification. So then you become pure and pure, but then also, who are you going to love? And then the problem here is that we were loving people who also aren't pure. So you can't love purely, and the people around us, they're not purely lovable. Because they have all this garbage. They have all this contamination. So it's you're contaminated garbage, and then there's another person that's contaminated with garbage, and then it's like, that's where relationships are so hard. So people say, you know what, that's something I'm going to try. I'm just going to get a dog. Dogs are nicer. They come programmed with just the right amount, their garbage is all programmed and nicely, and you just deal with it and it's fine. They don't keep coming up with different weird forms of garbage. That's why people like cats and dogs so much, because they're programmed to a certain, they're covered, the soul's covered, but they can do things in a certain way, and if you learn how to do that, then you've nailed it. It's an easy relationship to conquer, to nail. So it's satisfying in that way. But with God, God is infinitely lovable. Krishna means all attractive. So as you become purer and purer, and you can love in a higher and higher pure state of love, and then you direct that love to the supremely lovable, which is God. Only God is infinitely lovable. That's the perfection. That's what bhakti is. This is the path we're on here, bhakti yoga, the path of devotion. That's why the world, so many billions of people claim devotion and love to God. Because it's so nice, because now you're, even with your contaminated state, as you direct your love to the already pure and infinitely lovable Lord, you experience a higher state of love than you can with anybody else in any other relationship, even dogs and cats, with any kind of relationship. And that's why it's so rewarding. So if you haven't reached that yet, you can try, and I'm sure if you're watching this, you probably have already experienced what I'm saying. Okay, very nice. Text 41. The Vedic meters, so these are the meters. Meters means if you see how many syllables there are, you see those little lines? Like you look at the verse, and then you see, there's so many syllables per line. So like a typical Bhagavad-gita verse will have 8 syllables per line. So you'll see there, 8 syllables per line. Okay? And then, so the different number of syllables, these are the meters. So they have different names, But it's listed here. So the Vedic meters, this is the verse. Verse 41, the Vedic meters are Gayatri, Ushnik, Anushtup, Brihati, Panti, Trishtup, Jagati, Atichanda, Atiashti, Atijagati, and Ativirat. So those are, in case you wanted to memorize the different Vedic meters, they're here. Purport. The Gayatri meter has 24 syllables, the Ushnik 28, the Anushtup 32. So the Anushtup is the typical meter you'll find. So it's 32 because it's 4 lines of 8. Sometimes, or you just put the 32 in a line, it doesn't matter. But usually when you see it like transliterated, it's divided into 4 lines of Vedas, Bhagavad-gita. So that's the typical is the Anushtup. A lot of verses here in the Bhagavad Purana are also Anushtup, like this one is. This one we're reading now, it's also in the Anushtup meter. And sometimes you'll see it goes a little longer. It's usually called the Trishtup. And so that Trishtup has 12. Remember Krishna said it goes up by 4. So the Trishtup has 12 syllables per line, for example. And so on, each meter having 4 more syllables than the previous one. Vedic sound is called Brihati, or most expansive, and thus that it is not possible for ordinary living entities to understand all the technical details in this matter. So even here, in the purport, they're saying, look, it's not even possible for an ordinary living entity to understand the complexity of Sanskrit. It is a very complex language, which opens up, just as a parenthesis here, just so as if you're studying the Vedas, just be a little aware that because the Sanskrit is so complex, it does give way to a variety of interpretations. So you're wondering, why are there so many different spiritual paths, so many different interpretations of the Bhagavad-gita and Vedanta? It's because of Sanskrit, the way it is, you can take words and any syllables, and then you can say, well, this syllable actually expands to that. It just allows, it has a lot of flexibility because it is a very kind of like super high IQ language, the language of the gods, right? It's called Devanagari, it's the language of the Devas. So because it's like a very high level language, it allows for subtlety, and then you can use that subtlety, and the spiritual masters kind of they got into that. So they kind of took it a bit too far, if you ask me, but yeah, they have kind of fantastical interpretations of etymologies. They'll take this word and say, well, actually this word, the root of it is, and the meaning of this, and then they'll just come up with this whole other thing, which, wasn't really there in the verse, but they kind of they just go with it. Oh, and this, and then this, and then they expand. So like the spider expanding webs, the lots of spiritual masters from bygone days, they would also, expand different ideas and concepts from that root. So it can get a little confusing. So that's why you'll see different translations, different meanings. So you really have to use do your own research, as they say in financial matters, always so people are saying all these things, but hey, you're responsible, you do your own research. And so you should, when you're studying, when you're, choosing a guru, take in the whole message, study everything, see if it makes sense, but, go ahead and question, be open-minded, and see what makes more sense to you, before you just accept, oh, the guru said that it's like that. Well, make sure, you check, you're responsible for it. Now, at least, we all have access to AI. So with AI, of course, AI gets it wrong, or, hallucinates, blah, blah, yeah, sure. But still, now you can expand your intelligence with AI, so you can directly take transliterated verses, for example, and you just take it to your favorite AI, and it will analyze word by word, and it will make up translations for you. I'm using that a lot as well. It's a great way to study because it just gives you word by word, and it can give you the translation in the same meter. I've been doing that with my Portuguese speaking students. I'll take Bhagavatam verses and I'll put it in the same meter. So if it's Anushtup, it will give a translation in Anushtup. And if it's Trishtup, it will give a translation. So that's very nice. You have it's a way to kind of connect with the original, where you're using the same meter in the most literal possible translation. You can check word for word, and of course you can see if it makes sense, because I've been studying for 30 years, so I understand the philosophy. So you can see like, okay, that looks good, and kind of it is hitting word by word of the, the Sanskrit. So you can do these things now. You have access to these things, so you can verify for yourself. Okay, verse 42. In the entire world, this is Krishna saying, no one but me, this is Krishna speaking to Uddhava, no one but me actually understands the confidential purpose of Vedic knowledge. Wow, this is Krishna's statement. Krishna is saying this. And Uddhava, remember, Uddhava is the most intelligent person on the planet. That's how the Uddhava-gita starts. This is a statement Krishna says. Uddhava is the most intelligent person that was on the planet at the time when Krishna was here. Of course, remember, these are the last days of Krishna on planet Earth, 5,000 and some years ago, 5,100, 200 years ago. It's the last days, these are the last instructions of Krishna. Uddhava was the most intelligent person in the world, and Krishna says, in the entire world, no one but me actually understands the confidential purpose of Vedic knowledge. Thus, people do not know that the Vedas are actually prescribing in the ritualistic injunctions of Karma Kanda, or what object is actually being indicated in the formulas of worship found in the Upasana Kanda, or that which is elaborately discussed through various hypotheses in the Jnana Kanda section of the Vedas. So Krishna says, all these Vedas, people don't understand them. So they're seeing all these rituals and these rules, they don't understand the ultimate purpose, and they're seeing the different formulas of worship, they don't understand. They're seeing the different philosophical discussions, hypotheses in the Jnana Kanda session, they don't understand the ultimate meaning. Of course, the ultimate meaning is to achieve Krishna and love Him. Purport: the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the absolute truth, Lord Sri Krishna. Since the Lord is the source, maintainer, and ultimate goal of Vedic knowledge, He is Veda-vid, or the only true knower of Vedic knowledge. So-called philosophers, either Vedic scholars or ordinary men, may give their sectarian opinion, but it is the Lord Himself who knows the confidential purpose of the Vedas. The Lord is the only actual shelter and lovable object for all living entities. As He states in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, Bhagavad-gita 10:41, Yad yad vibhutimat satvam srimadurjitam evavam tata deva vagachatvam mama tejam sasambhavam. Know that all beautiful, glorious, and mighty creations spring but from a spark of my splendor. All beautiful, extraordinary, and powerful manifestations are insignificant displays of the Lord's own opulences. Although ordinary people may quarrel over the purpose of religion, the actual purpose is one: Krishna consciousness, or pure love of Godhead. All Vedic formulas are understood to be preliminary stages leading to the perfect stage of Krishna consciousness, in which one fully surrenders to the devotional service of the Lord. The pure devotees of the Lord represent Him within this world and never speak anything which is not authorized by the Lord. Because they are repeating the Lord's own words, they are also to be understood as true knowers of the Veda. So that is our goal here, to always transmit what Krishna is teaching. Always focus and bring you back to Krishna's teaching. That's what I do. So have a rest of your day with lots of peace and lots of love. Hare Krishna.